Chapter 61 Large-Scale Collective Pua Scene. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Watching Harry and the other two being overwhelmed by the rumors. In fact, Levin felt a little guilty inside. Obviously he had sensed Filch's arrival, but he sold them out for the trip to the Forbidden Forest. Of course, that's all there is to guilt. After all, there was no him in the original work, so Harry and the others were still deducted points. His existence at least saved Hermione, which probably cost them 50 points less. However, Levin did want to try to help them. On the one hand, I can't stand this kind of campus bullying, and on the other hand, I also want to make Gryffindor disgusted. So after finishing breakfast, he stood up directly, and with everyone watching, he came to Gryffindor's table with great fanfare and sat next to Harry. Because of the crowding, there was no one around them. "People sit," then, he deliberately said to them in a loud voice, wishing he could use a loud voice for himself. "Ignore them, Harry, Ronald and Neville, ignore these people's slander. The classmates who would exclude you because of this matter are just superficial classmates. A friendship severed over this incident is a hypocritical friendship. And these superficial and hypocritical classmates and friendships are not worth your sadness." 340. Levin's words made the Gryffindors around him glare at him, but he didn't care and continued to comment loudly. "I believe that if this happened to me, if I let Ravenclaw deduct 50 points. I believe that my smart classmates will only criticize a little, and then work with me to make up for the points, and it's not about adding insult to injury." The Ravenclaws puffed up their chests in agreement. "Not to mention you, Potter. Because of your performance in Quidditch, Gryffindor defeated Slytherin this year and got more points than before. These points are enough to make up for the 50 points deducted. And your classmates, but I only see your current mistakes and forget your past glory. Looking at the Weasley brothers, they haven't stopped losing points since they entered school. The scattered points add up to over 50 points, but they are still very popular." He paused and looked around. Some Gryffindors lowered their heads in shame, but George and Fred held their heads high proudly. "When your peers are honored, they are honored. When your peers are deducted, they are humiliated. Good students are criticized when points are deducted occasionally. Troublemakers occasionally do good deeds and turn around. They still represent courage, loyalty, and will a Gryffindor. They are so hypocritical, they are even worse than Slytherin. No matter how good Slytherin is, at least they are united." The Slytherins also showed proud smiles. Although they were a little dissatisfied with the words "not even as good as Slytherin," at least they were positive examples in comparison with Gryffindor. And what about those Gryffindors? Some were criticized and angry, some were ashamed, but no one came out to admit their mistakes or defend themselves. This is the Gryffindor known for his courage. In fact, in the original book, they continue to repeat this bad behavior throughout Harry's school life. After listening to Levin's words, the guilt in Harry's and the other three's hearts finally eased a lot, and Hermione didn't blame herself so much either. But the same thing is that their eyes looked at Levin with gratitude. This is a true friend. If they weren't true friends, who would support them in this situation? In fact, neither they nor the other little wizards present have thought clearly that Levin's series of remarks just now were not entirely correct. It is full of rhetoric and subtitled concepts. For example, Levin's part about him and Ravenclaw. If he gets points deducted, Ravenclaw people will still support him. In this passage, Levin cleverly uses a reasonable fact to cover up a wrong reason. If he really gets points deducted, Ravenclaw really won't have anything to say about him, but this is not because Ravenclaw is more united and sensible than Gryffindor, it is because the actual status of Levin and Harry in their respective houses is different. If Harry's reputation level is worship, then Levin's reputation level is awe. People with admired reputation will still be excluded if they do extraordinary things, because everyone is equal, but if a person who is revered by others does anything out of line, others will not dare to say anything. Through his crushing academic ability, the strength he showed when defeating trolls, and the reputation he built in Quidditch, Levin is in this position in Ravenclaw. As for why Levin wants to support Ravenclaw, that is of course to complete the bullying of the bullies. The reason Gryffindors can bully Harry and others is because they are the majority of Gryffindors, and the atmosphere they create is something Harry and others can only passively endure. This is the bullying of the minority by the majority, and if you want to complete the bullying, you must naturally make the bullies a minority. How to turn an entire group of Gryffindors into a minority. Naturally, let the other three houses bully Gryffindor together, therefore, he would mention himself and support Ravenclaw in order to win over Ravenclaw's power in public opinion. That's why he provoked Slytherin in words, because Slytherin and Gryffindor were the most hostile, and there was no need to win over each other. You can achieve your goal by provoking them 10 times. Finally, why didn't Levin mention Hufflepuff the entire time? Because Hufflepuff follows the crowd most. If others have already reached an agreement, they will most likely choose to go along with it, so, under Levin's guidance, the situation has become that the three houses unanimously look down on Gryffindor for treating one of their own. Of course, the most important thing is, in this process, he brought his ability to charm humans to its limit, and use, Psychic Controller, to make the effects of magic control spells and mental abilities equivalent to each other, bursting out all the blessings of the mind on abilities. This made his words deafening and convincing to everyone. In this weird atmosphere, many little lions also quietly gave in. The Gryffindors who had insulted Harry and others before ran away after breakfast. Seamus, who had a good relationship with Harry before, apologized to Harry hesitantly, saying that he should not have turned his back on him at the critical moment. Several senior students also bowed and apologized when they passed by them, and then left quickly. In short, with just one word, Levin changed the situation of Harry and others to a great extent. Even though there are still a large part of Gryffindors who still don't want to pay attention to Harry and others, compared to the situation in the original book, they are doing pretty well now. Levin was very satisfied with his speech. On the one hand, he successfully tested the practical effects of psychic abilities and magic control spells. Since he wants to subvert the magic world and raise a floating city in the future, he must learn such political methods in order to gain harvest. More supporters. On the other hand, this practice also gave him more insights into psychic abilities. You successfully used psychic powers and magic control spells to distort the will of others on a large scale without being discovered. You have a deeper understanding of the power of the mind. Your Psion level +1, you understand the mind. Supernatural powers, detect thoughts, memory control, psychic explosion, thought communication, detection of thoughts, 2-ring magic control spell/psychic power. The caster can listen to other people's superficial thoughts, similar to legilimency. Psychic blast, 3-ring magic control spell/psychic power, shocking the minds of enemies in the cone area ahead. Memory control, 4-ring magic control spells/psychic powers, capable of adding, modifying and deleting target memories. The target must have no resistance, including yourself. Thought communication, 4-ring magic control spells/psychic powers, maintaining mental communication with other creatures. The Psion profession has seen another wave of growth. After reading a series of new spells, Levin suddenly felt that his ability as a psychic to play with people's minds was getting stronger and stronger. Another unexpected surprise is that after this speech, Ravenclaw's eaglets changed their view of Levin. In fact, Levin's performance has been firmly affecting the behavior of the eagles. His excellence is amazing, and his positivity and studiousness are also regarded as a model by many people. However, given Ravenclaw's free and undisciplined ethos, few people would show this emotion, which would make them look different. After all, worshipping and following someone seems very un-Ravenclaw. One of the characteristics of Ravenclaw is freedom, but the previous atmosphere of Ravenclaw made many Kitty Hawk 5.3 people free for freedom's sake. And those who do not show freedom are not gregarious. As a certain fish god said, can freedom still be called freedom when ordered by the god of liberty? Now, Levin's words have broken the atmosphere that Ravenclaw has always had. The original emphasis on the freedom side of Ravenclaw has shifted to the pursuit of knowledge and learning side of Ravenclaw. The eaglets, especially the first-year eaglets, discovered that there were so many people around them who all agreed with Levin's style and concepts, and those who admired him were not alien. So more and more eaglets began to regard Levin as a leader, imitating his studiousness, his living and study habits. Instead of continuing to focus on boring hobbies such as studying egg divination and using dice to decide what to do today, it can be said that in Ravenclaw, especially in the first year, Levin became the uncrowned king. In the entire academy, except for Quidditch star Cyrilla Leanne and female prefect Penelope Clearwater, no one has a higher influence than him, including the unknown Ravenclaw hero. Long. Chapter 62 Abnormality of Scholar Moonstone. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Even with Levin's help, most of the little lions forgave Harry and others, but the punishment from the school will not be reduced. Soon, Harry, the three of them, and Malfoy all received the exact same note. Your confinement starts at 11 tonight. Find Mr. Filch in the foyer. At 11 o'clock at night, Harry, Ronald, and Neville went downstairs to the foyer, where Argus Filch, the caretaker of Hogwarts, was already waiting in the foyer. Also staying with him was Malfoy. Filch's punishment for them was to help patrol the Forbidden Forest. This frightened them. That's the Forbidden Forest. It is also a restricted area of Hogwarts. The fourth-floor corridor needs Dumbledore to remind him repeatedly not to go there. The deterrence inherent in the Forbidden Forest does not need to be like that at all. Under ordinary circumstances, it would be dangerous enough for the Forbidden Forest to whisper to the young wizard, the eight-eyed spider that eats people, the centaur that hates wizards, the werewolf that appears on the full moon, all kinds of dangerous dark creatures, magical animals. Just hearing about it makes people scared. Now that they were asked to go there at night, their fear doubled. However, no matter how scared they are, the confinement of the school cannot be changed, so they had to bite the bullet and follow Filch all the way to see Hagrid. They didn't know that there was another person following them in an invisible state at this time. Levin had long wanted to take a stroll in the Forbidden Forest, but he had no acquaintance to guide him. It's not like he could stand guard in front of Hagrid's house every night to see which day he would go to patrol the forest, so I chose to use the confinement of Harry and others in the original work. At this time, Levin was fully armed, all the buffs he could add were filled up, and he was fully prepared. He even did not forget to change his robe into red and yellow. In this case, if something unexpected happens and he is exposed, others will only regard him as a Gryffindor wizard. He has always been very good at framing blame. In the blink of an eye, they saw the gamekeeper waiting for them at the forbidden edge. Don't let them take it easy, Filch reminded Hagrid cryptically before leaving. Hagrid frowned when he heard this. I know what to do, I don't need you to teach me. Although Hagrid and Filch have been colleagues for a long time, their personalities are completely different. Hagrid is optimistic by nature and loves little wizards, but as a squib, Filch hated these little guys with spellcasting talents the most. Seeing them would remind him of his life of disbelief. The two people have different views, so naturally they can't talk together. Seeing Filch walking away with the lantern, Hagrid turned to look at the four pitiful little wizards and couldn't help but feel a headache. If it were him, visiting the Forbidden Forest would be like visiting his own back garden, but for the little wizard, the Forbidden Forest is indeed a bit dangerous. After Filch left, Draco Malfoy immediately started acting like a monster. He attempts to use his father's status as school director to threaten Hagrid to avoid entering the Forbidden Forest, but Hagrid, a straight-tempered man, didn't have a good impression of Slytherin, so he retorted on the spot, I tell you, this is what Hogwarts is like. What good will just writing a check do you? You have to do something useful, or you have to get out. If you think your father is willing to let you be expelled, just go back to the castle and pack your bags. Let's go. Hagrid, okay. Even in the eyes of Levin, who has no hatred against Malfoy, Hagrid's curse was a hearty one. It's not that he discriminates against Slytherins, it's just that Malfoy is too mean. Although he is not a treacherous person, his nature is not too bad either, but I just like to use some small means to disgust others, and then feel proud of myself. This kind of naughty kid will have to do it a few times before he gives in. Seeing that Malfoy stopped talking, Hagrid was satisfied, so he separated everyone like those stupid protagonists in horror movies, Malfoy, Neville and Hagrid's Dogtooth team. Hagrid personally led Harry and Ronald, as well as Levin who came to ride with him. The cold moonlight shines on the path leading to the Forbidden Forest. The dark Forbidden Forest seems to have a big mouth open, trying to swallow up anyone who dares to violate it. Hagrid led them on a winding path that gradually disappeared into the depths of the dark forest, and a breeze blew their hair. Looking from the entrance, the scenery of the dense forest is hazy and unclear, and the strange-shaped branches are like devils with teeth and claws, waiting for the arrival of prey. The moonlight shines through the gaps between the leaves and onto the aperture on the ground. Instead of letting people feel the warmth of the light, it gives people a strange and misty feeling of dizziness. Because he was patrolling the forest, Hagrid didn't walk very fast. As he walked, he observed the surroundings and introduced Harry to the surrounding animals and plants. As a friend, Hagrid still takes good care of them. With Hagrid's help, the two gradually let go of their fear of the forbidden forest and began to appreciate this vibrant world. Behind them, Levin, an illegal tourist who used the tour guide, listened to the explanation of the gold-medal tour guide Hagrid while collecting precious materials along the way, grass bugs in the shrubs, jumping toadstool caps under the trees, belladonna, white berries, moonstone, soundless bird feathers. Relying on his strong perception, Levin did not let go of any possible materials nearby. He even collected the blood of unicorns he saw on the road. Unicorn blood contains powerful vitality, but those who drink it will also be fatally cursed, but drinking it directly and using it to make potions are completely different things. Levin followed Hagrid all the way, but after walking for about an hour, he had to say goodbye to several people, deviate from the safe path taken by Hagrid, and go deeper into more dangerous areas. The reason is that Levin discovered a nest of mottled rats in the distance. This animal has a sea anemone-shaped tumor on its back, and the juice in it is a very important magical material. After being separated from Hagrid, Levin could only move freely in the Forbidden Forest. Use your senses to look around and find the materials you need. However, Levin soon discovered that the Moonstone in his bag was causing trouble again. Even if the dragon skin wallet can completely block its light, the power in the available stone keeps rising and falling, making Levin agitated. What does this thing seem to be foreshadowing? Levin tried going in different directions, and found that when he went in a certain direction, Cheshire's power fluctuated the most. Out of curiosity, he walked straight in that direction. The further he walked, the more something was wrong. While walking past a moss-covered tree stump, he saw large drops of silver-blue blood, indicating that the unicorn had been seriously injured. Could this thing be pointing in the direction? After walking around a big tree, Levin heard the sound of horse hooves and looked ahead to see an open space. In the clearing, a silver-white unicorn was confronting a masked wizard wearing a black cloak. "Oh no, why did you lead me here?" Levin cursed inwardly. With his caution, even if he is confident, with his current strength, he can fight against Quirrell, who is possessed by Voldemort. He still had no intention of rashly intervening in Voldemort's attack on the unicorn. On the contrary, his original idea was to follow Hagrid into the depths of the Forbidden Forest via a safe road, and take advantage of the emptiness of the Forbidden Forest to freely collect herbs. In his plan, Voldemort should be a tool. Voldemort, who was wandering in the Forbidden Forest, had already checked out the dangerous creatures nearby for him, and when he causes trouble, he will attract the attention of the entire Forbidden Forest Protection Force. Both Hagrid himself and the Centaurs will come to him for trouble. At that time, you can take advantage of the opportunity to make a big profit. Who would have thought that under the leadership of this unlucky Moonstone, he would be sent directly to help the unicorn fight against Voldemort? The tool man is actually myself. No way. Levin was just about to turn around, while the invisibility technique was still far away from the dispute. Who would have thought that the scarred unicorn would fly towards Levin regardless of its opponent? It's like you can see him invisible. This is also deliberately tempting. Levin's mentality was a bit broken, thanks to Mr. Chonghen for the reward. Chapter 63, He runs away, he chases, he can't fly without wings. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The unicorn can't actually see Levin, it's the power of the Moonstone that attracts her. Levin uses animal conversations and whispers to allow her to receive spiritual conversations and then arrange tactics. Unicorn's main attack, Levin's sneak attack, family members, who knows? I just simply watch others fight. Unexpectedly, one of them immediately ran to me after seeing me. Isn't this just pulling people into trouble? This is how Levin felt when he saw the unicorn running towards him. The unicorn wanted to pull him into the water, but he naturally didn't want to, so he turned around and ran away, and the masked cloaked man who attacked the unicorn, Quirrell, who didn't want to be named, naturally refused to let go of the dish he got, and hurriedly followed him. Now, the three people were chasing each other, and they started a chase in the huge Forbidden Forest. The more Levin ran, the more frightened he became. He has never heard that unicorns have the ability to see through invisibility, but every time he changes direction, the opponent can accurately catch up with him. He really couldn't understand how this was done. Finally, by a creak, Levin stopped running completely. He turned around, raised his wand, and took 3 or 4 more. Ardent seal, trap, nearby. He wanted to see how this farce would continue. Less than 5 seconds after he stopped, he heard the sound of horse hooves, and the unicorn found his location accurately again, but when he stood there, waiting for the unicorn to come forward. He found that the unicorn's eyes were distracted and not looking at him. At the same time, he lowered his head and looked left and right, as if looking for something. Is it so confusing that it can't actually see me? Is it just because I have something on me that it always knows where I am? Levin suddenly had a new guess. If there is anything about me that can attract unicorns, it is only. Thinking of this, Levin tried to open his wallet, then he immediately noticed that the unicorn in front of him had a humane expression of surprise, and then he came forward briskly. Sure enough, Scholar you sure was responsible for all this. The power and significance of this gem seemed to be greater than he imagined. It seems that this unicorn has to be saved. Thinking of this, Levin silently recited a fireball spell. At this moment, Mr. Quirrell, who did not want to be named, also caught up. He looked at the unicorn in front of him and said fiercely, "Run! You little brat, why don't you run away?" That he looked around, then let out a terrifying laugh like a night owl. "Gia gia gia, this place has a nice scenery, and it is just right for your burial place." The long hunt made him a little impatient. Seeing the enemy coming, the unicorn also stopped approaching the Moonstone. As if to protect Scholar Moonstone, the unicorn turned around, lowered its head, pointed the horn on its head at the opponent, and rushed forward. So the battle begins again. Although unicorns are docile, they are not weak. Their magic resistance cannot be underestimated. As for strength and courage, the angry unicorn even dared to fight the fire dragon, but Levin knew that the unicorn in front of him wouldn't last long. Quirrell's hunt for it may have lasted all night. During the long struggle, the unicorn had been scarred and its movements were not very flexible, but it still stubbornly resisted Quirrell's threat. Levin saw that the unicorn was taking advantage of its body and charging wildly in the battle, with its long horn touching the left and right, but it could not hide that it was at a disadvantage. This kind of attack seemed like a futile struggle, and Quirrell was still able to stay on it. Another wound after another. However, in Levin's eyes, Quirrell himself is much weaker than before. The power of magic is constantly decreasing. This is the price of drinking unicorn blood. In order to continue his incomplete soul, Voldemort made Quirrell bear most of the curse, which made him suffer terribly. If the unicorn blood hadn't been able to stop Voldemort from sucking Quirrell's life force, there would really be no benefit at all for him to hunt the unicorn. Now that he's determined to help, Levin won't stand still. He held his breath and concentrated, picked a Quirrell to distance himself, and suddenly took a step forward at the right time to cast the stun curse on the unicorn. Psychic blast. In an instant, Professor Quirrell felt as if a heavy hammer had hit his brain. His entire mind went blank, and the red light that was about to emit from the tip of the wand was suppressed. Even though he was possessed by the Dark Lord and had two faces, front and back, and could see and hear in all directions, he could not have expected this invisible blow without any warning. Immediately afterwards, a fireball that had been prepared flew over. The blazing orange-red sphere carried heat waves and hit his chest directly, and then a huge explosion occurred. During explosion 1, Levin seemed to hear a sharp voice that did not belong to Professor Quirrell. When the fire light dissipated, Levin saw Professor Quirrell's still standing body, only his black robe became tattered. It seems that the fireball spell just now did not cause the proper damage. However, Levin did not stop attacking. Regardless of the fact that he had been exposed from the invisible state, he stepped forward again and raised his hand to aim at the opponent. Alder seal, impact. The sudden shock wave knocked Quirrell away and landed under a tree. Then there was another flash of light, followed by Quirrell's cry of pain. Levin just knocked him into the ardent trap he had set. This was the backup plan he had planned long ago. Quirrell suddenly felt paralyzed, unable to move for a moment, let alone raise his wand to counterattack. At this time, he had already reacted. He had been ambushed, and that person seems to be a Gryffindor student. But there was no time for him to think now. Quirrell, who had already fought with the unicorn for a while, was very weak, and the little wizard in front of him was no ordinary person. The fireball just now. If it weren't for Voldemort's power, he would have stopped cooking on the spot, but now he has fallen into a trap again, and has lost the ability to resist for a while. Seeing the little wizard raising his wand again, if he didn't run away now, when would he wait? Then Levin saw that the black-robed wizard in front of him turned into a ball of black mist and quickly fled into the distance. Ghost. A few seconds later, another scream came from not far away. It turned out to be Hagrid. Harry, and Ronald who encountered the fleeing Quirrell. Ronald mistook Quirrell for his ghost, Quirrell, who was running away, also saw Harry and immediately floated towards Harry. Harry, Ronald, you go first. Hagrid bravely stopped in front of them. Harry, who was protected, had no strength to escape. A sharp pain penetrated Harry's head. This was a feeling he had never felt before, as if his scar was suddenly on fire. Micrometeor.Levin, who followed closely behind him, launched an attack in time. A gleaming marvelous sphere shot towards Quirrell like a discharged bullet. It originally thought that its black mist state could make it immune to physical attacks, but it didn't take it seriously. Unexpectedly, when the sphere penetrated its atomized body, Quirrell felt a sharp pain. At the same time, on the path that the sphere passed, the surrounding black mist disappeared one after another, and the volume of the entire black mist was reduced by less than half. This is the brilliance of the three-ring god-slaying spell. No matter who you are, you will suffer its real damage. Seeing that this terrifying Gryffindor could harm himself in the black mist state, Quirrell did not dare to stay any longer and fled as far away as possible. Chapter 64 Unicorn and Druid. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After confirming that Hagrid and the other three were safe and sound, Levin turned back to check on the unicorn. When Levin returned to the unicorn, the beautiful animal seemed to be in a very bad state. It didn't even have the strength to run after Scholar Moonstone anymore, and could only lie on the ground groaning in pain. But when Levin approached, the other person showed a happy expression. Is this Scholar Moonstone so attractive? It looks like it was sucked. Levin pointed at the unicorn's wound with his wand. Healing as before. This is the most basic healing spell. Over the past half semester, Levin has learned almost all the magic spells below level 3 that he can come into contact with, and the healing curse is no exception. However, after he cast the spell, the unicorn's wound only stopped bleeding slightly and had no healing effect. After he learned this spell, he tried it himself, and it worked immediately every time. Why couldn't it work on the unicorn? Levin did not believe in evil and tried several times, but each time he only made the wound recover a little. But within a minute, the wound would burst open again, until detection magic gave him the answer. At the wound, Levin saw a strong smell of curse. Certain black magic can indeed make wounds difficult to heal. A typical example is the Shenfeng Wuing, invented by Snape. Levin was a little helpless at this time. He tried taking an uplifting potion from the Aurus belt and feeding it to the unicorn, but it still had little effect. Suddenly, he discovered that the unicorn also had a wound on its nose, but now it disappeared. How is this going? He looked at the unicorn, who was lying meekly next to Levin, keeping his head close to the wallet at his waist. Could it be the effect of Scholar Moonstone? Levin took out the Moonstone and tried to place it near the most obvious wound on the unicorn's thigh. Then he discovered that as the Moonstone got closer, the curse on the wound began to gradually fade, and was eventually completely dispelled, and the wound also showed signs of recovery. He used the healing spell on the wound again. This time the effect was much more obvious, and the silver-blue blood finally stopped flowing out. It turns out this thing has the power to dispel curses. So, in the next period of time, he used the power of the Moonstone to dispel the curse and heal all the wounds on the unicorn. Soon, the unicorn's life would be fine, and it would be back to its original state as long as it rested for a period of time. You watched Scholar Moonstone expel the black magic curse, and you understood the spell. Remove curse. Relocation curse. A 3-ring protection spell that instantly removes all curses on an item or creature. You understand the healing power of Moonstone. You understand the technique of using the power of nature to restore life. You understand the mage's rejuvenation technique. Rejuvenation, using the power of nature for treatment. Rejuvenation. Isn't this a druid spell? Levin was immediately surprised. All this time, he has been exposed to the magic spells of the magical world, and what he has learned is related to magic-consuming spells. Who would have thought that he would learn the spells of a druid here? Although both are spells, there are essential differences between spells. The wizard controls magic power, while the druid spells use BDDF, the power of nature, not a system. Sure enough, the power within this scholar's Moonstone is closely related to nature. No wonder it reacted to the forbidden forest. No wonder it took me to find the injured unicorn. No wonder the unicorn kept staring at the Moonstone. Levin gradually understood everything. he remembered the wizard's research on unicorns in the world of Harry Potter. Unicorns are beautiful animals that can be found in the forests of northern Europe. Adult unicorns are silvery white, and when young they are golden. The horn, blood, and hair of the unicorn all have strong magical effects. The horn has the effect of detoxifying, the tail hair can be used to make a wand, and its blood can extend life. Its personality is very different from its docile appearance, and it can fight fire dragons. It generally avoids contact with humans, is probably more willing to let witches than wizards approach it, and runs very quickly, making it very difficult to capture. But in other magical worlds, unicorns are not only magical creatures, but also have symbolic meaning. Unicorns are synonymous with kindness and purity, and are the guardians of nature. In worlds with gods, unicorns serve the gods of nature and the forest, who are the lords and protectors of the forest. In short, unicorns are creatures closely related to the forces of nature. According to research by wizards in the Harry Potter world, the magic used by magical creatures is different from the magic used by wizards. As for the difference, whether each magical creature has unique magic power, or whether there is another power system between magical creatures, they did not discuss it further. But Levin can now be clear, in this world, besides magic, there is at least one other power system, that's the force of nature. This power exists widely in nature and in magical creatures related to nature. If this result is published in a book, it will definitely cause a sensation in the entire wizarding world, but this is something Levin will consider in the future. All he wanted to do at the moment was to stroke the unicorn in front of him. I can't help it, the little guy is so cute. From the appearance, the unicorn in front of me should not be fully mature. Its head and body are still a little juvenile, and the mane on its back is still mixed with gold. Although the unicorn's hair looks a little messy due to the previous battle, the silver hair that is completely free of color and as smooth as brocade is really attractive, coupled with the graceful appearance of a horse and the watery big head eyes. Even Levin, who doesn't keep pets very much, wants to touch them. Facing Levin's tentatively extended hand, the unicorn was quite enthusiastic and took the initiative to hand over his head. What about the promised unicorns that repel wizards? But Levin was very happy. The little guy could indeed become a unicorn, and it was worth his efforts to save it, so Levin simply put its head in his arms and slapped it. Hey, stop rubbing, my mane is messed up. Halfway through the process, Levin suddenly heard a childish female voice in his arms. It was broken, and then he remembered that he could talk to animals. Well, you can talk. Levin let go of the unicorn's head and said sheepishly. Of course, what unicorn can't speak? The little guy rolled his eyes humanely, then tilted his head and looked at Levin with a strange look. Mr. Druid, how could you say that? What about the language of unicorns? The expression of its tilted head once again struck Levin. Resisting Rua's desire to give it a try, Levin explained, this is the function of magic. In fact, I can communicate with almost any magical creature, as long as they can communicate. This sentence is true. Although Levin has animal conversation, the quality of the conversation depends entirely on the intelligence of the animal, similar to ordinary kittens and puppies, as well as Levin's eagle owl Hermer. Talking to them is like communicating with a 3 or 4-year-old child. If it is a toad, a mouse, or even a creature with lower intelligence, then communication is limited to the simplest and most basic emotions. When encountering a unicorn, a creature with the intelligence of an adult, it is natural that it can speak normally. So that's it. Magic is really amazing. You are worthy of being a druid. The unicorn nodded as if he understood, and then happily raised his head on Levin's chest. Just in time, since I can talk to Lord Druid, I want to say to you face to face, thank you, Lord Druid, for saving me. Master Druid is really smart. He laid out the trap early in the morning, then led the bad guy here and defeated him in one fell swoop. Master Druid is so amazing. Wow, thank you so much. He is such a frank kid, but it is a pity that the druid you admire was not luring the enemy, but running away. The trap was only hastily arranged. In the end, the fight with the Dark Lord was a last resort, and he did not take the initiative to help you. But facing this watery, shining innocent look, Levin really couldn't bear to live up to her expectations, so he nodded. It's okay little guy, this is what I should do. Then, he asked strangely, it's you, little guy. I'm obviously a wizard, why do you call me a druid? Do you know what a druid is? What else can a druid be? A druid is a druid. The unicorn looked at Levin with a confused look on his face. My parents told me that the person who represents nature is the druid. Moonstone chose you, and you are the spokesperson of nature, so you are the druid. It seems that they haven't seen the druid either, it's no wonder, this is the world of wizards after all. Druidry and other things have disappeared thousands of years ago, but judging from the scholar Moonstone, left by the ancient Celts, there might have been some a real druid, and the Moonstone is the druid's artifact or something. In this way, after the Saxons landed in England, they ruled the Celts and eliminated the druids. Could it be that the wizards consciously exterminated the druids behind this? After all, they are all spellcasters, so they are extremely jealous of each other. Levin felt that he might have accidentally guessed the truth, however, this kind of historical issue has nothing to do with him now. The key is the issue of the Moonstone and the power of the druid. Since the Moonstone possesses the power of nature and is a sacred object of the druid, is it possible for him to master the power of the druid? Updated, May 4th, additional update, November 18th. Chapter 69 Druid Heritage. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The moment the scholar Moonstone was stuffed into the dent, it burst into silver blue light, with the Moonstone as the center. The lines on the boulder that had been dormant for thousands of years awakened one after another, shining with silver blue light and quickly spread throughout the entire boulder. Then came the inner ring of stones guarding the boulder, after that comes the outer ring. In less than 5 seconds, the entire stone array sparkled and buzzed. Such a huge reaction attracted the attention of the entire Centaur's tribe here. That little wizard, what did he do to our sacred objects? Ben shouted angrily and rushed towards the stone formation, trying to catch Levin, but was blocked by an invisible barrier. Ronan was also very uneasy. The melancholy centaur paced back and forth, both hoping that this was a sign of fate and fearing what terrible consequences all this would lead to. Most horse people are like them, curious, worried and afraid of all this. Only Firenze and Larry were calm. The little unicorn stared intently at the stone formation, looking at Levin with his belly standing in the formation, his eyes shining. As expected of Lord Druid, he can actually induce such a powerful force of nature. He is indeed the one chosen by nature. The little guy said happily. Firenze whispered to comfort his companions, "Don't worry, everyone, this is not an accident. This is what the stars tell us, the moment when the centaurs change their destiny. The man of destiny is revealing the future to us. Firenze is right." At this time, a deep voice sounded, calming the uneasiness of the centaurs. It was Margaret who arrived. 890 The centaur leader looked at Levin in the stone formation from afar, with an ethereal voice. The stars reveal to us the trajectory of the future, and we chose to actively embrace it. At this time, the centaur's oath is also the choice of the horse people. The horse people chose to invite the son of destiny into the tribe, so they should embrace the changes he brings. His words silenced all the worried centaurs, and even the most irritated Banes stopped making trouble. In the stone formation at this time, Levin could feel that the moment the scholar's Moonstone was embedded in the boulder, it was integrated with the entire stone formation. A huge ceremony has begun, however. He could feel that this ceremony was grand and exquisite, not a destructive spell, and Tion had no intention of organizing it. As the main stone formations were all activated, the power of the ceremony reached directly into the stars. Then, a ray of silver-blue moonlight descended from Levin's head and shone on him. That moment, he seemed to be bathing in a hot spring. The pores all over the body are dilating. At the same time, a large amount of information poured into his mind. You feel the inheritance from ancient Druidism entering your mind. You refer to the Druid profession in Otherworld and understand the power of Druid. You gain the Druid profession, your Druid profession level +5, you gain the expertise, Earth Society, Moon Society, and you gain the corresponding Druid basic spells. You will learn new spells as you level up. You gain the Druid ability, Wild Form. You have understood the principle of the permanent elixir. You have noticed the connection between the permanent elixir and the Druid wilderness ceremony. You have a sudden inspiration and changed the formula of the permanent elixir. You can slightly change the permanent elixir. For the formula, you can replace the wilderness ritual potion with a permanent elixir, allowing you to perform wilderness rituals regardless of level, and your wilderness form is changed to the creature corresponding to the elixir formula. Earth Association. As a member of the association, you will learn more natural spells. Moon Society. You will be protected by the stars and the moon, and the power of the wilderness will exist in your bloodline. Wild form. You can gain the ability to transform into a certain creature through wilderness rituals. Gain 1 transformation at level 1, and you can choose 1 more transformation every 4 levels. Wow! Feeling the inheritance he just received and his new understanding, Levin finally understood everything. He looked at the dim stone formation and the only shining scholar's moonstone among the boulders, and was filled with emotion. No wonder this thing is called the Scholar Moonstone. I thought there was some extended meaning in it, but it turns out it's the literal meaning. This is the key to liberating the Druid's knowledge. The natural power of the hanging is just a side effect. But to what extent were these Celtic ancestors forced by the Saxons and wizards? They had to make such a big deal and use star ritual spells to store the Druid heritage in the power of the stars and moon. But the effect is really good. Unless the wizard knows the turtle-style qigong and can knock down the moon, this inheritance will never be cut off. But the negative effects are also very obvious. Only the scholar's moonstone can open the inheritance. If the moonstone is lost, it will directly mean that the inheritance is lost. Recalling the inheritance information he just received, Levin couldn't help but sigh. Although I still don't understand the relationship between centaurs and druidism, I at least understand that there are elements of druidism in modern magic. With this inheritance, Levin realized that this druidism was not exactly the same as the druids, BDFE, he imagined. In essence, druidry in the world of Harry Potter is also a kind of wizard. It's just that they clicked the skill tree wrongly, and instead of fully embracing their own talents, they went to study nature. This caused them to lose ground in the face of orthodox wizards, and finally ended their inheritance, but in the process of studying natural forces, they still made many achievements, and many of them have been passed down to this day. The most typical one is the Animagus. This was originally a ritual from the Druid religion. After the wizards destroyed the Druid religion, the wizards absorbed the essence of the Druid religion and incorporated it into their own system, including Animagus transformation. In addition, wizards also absorbed a lot of the achievements of Druidism in terms of potions, herbalism, and divination. In short, although the Druids in the Harry Potter world can also control the power of nature, they are far inferior to the Druids in Otherworld. Others can enlighten tree people and summon thorns and vines anywhere, and they can only cultivate a few bowtruckles and a few biting cabbages, and throw them out during battle. Others can turn into a bear, a leopard, or a crow at will, and they can only transform into a designated animal through a series of complex rituals. Others can summon moonfire and make stars fall, and they can only trigger the power of the stars and moon through complex rituals and formations. Without his own understanding, this inheritance would be quite useless to Levin. But now that this inheritance has been completely transformed, everything is different. His current druid profession is from Otherworld, a complete druid. Moreover, Levin also changed the formula of the permanent potion as a blessing in disguise. Under the new formula, the main material representing the corresponding attribute can be replaced by other materials with the same symbolic meaning. For example, Eternal Ox Power Elixir originally required the blood of the reem cow. But now the blood of the buffalo is not impossible. Of course, Levin didn't intend to do this, because the permanent potion at this time has a further function, that is, it is a potion used in wilderness rituals. Druid can perform a wilderness ritual every 4 levels to obtain a wilderness form by absorbing the blood of the corresponding creature. This ability is equivalent to having 1 more Animagus form every 4 levels, which is very unbelievable. But if the permanent attribute potion in the ritual can ignore the level restriction, in other words, Levin does not need level 20 to obtain 6 transformations, and each transformed creature corresponds to the source of the main material in the permanent potion. If he uses the permanent cow power elixir, made from the blood of reem cow, then he will not only have a permanent strength +5, but he can also transform into a reem cow. This is a transformed magical creature. Can Animagus do it? But here's the key: since the source of the main material is the transformed creature, this means that Levin can choose some magical creatures that are special or powerful enough as the objects of transformation. A person can drink 6 kinds of attribute potions and obtain 6 kinds of transformations. He needs to study this carefully, however, now is not the time to think about this matter. Levin turned around and looked. Outside the stone formation, Marjorie and Larry had already stepped forward. There are also centaurs who are surrounding the stone formation and dare not take a step beyond the barrier. They looked at Levin curiously, wanting to know what they had just discovered. Chapter 70 Ancient Oath. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Excuse me, Mr. Marjorie. Before they could speak, Levin took the initiative and said, I accidentally made a big noise just now and disturbed you. I'm really sorry. Although he didn't say it explicitly, it seemed as if he had deliberately planned the big scene just now, which made Marjorie look at him with a little more attention. What the hell, Mr. Green, we centaurs are still too short-sighted to understand your abilities. At this time, Marjorie's face was full of smiles, her old face smiled like an old chrysanthemum, and she was 3 points more careful than 10 minutes ago. But this is the holy land of us centaurs after all. If there is such a commotion, it will be difficult to explain to everyone if we don't know the reason. So can you please tell us what happened just now? Okay, after all, I am using your holy land. Levin nodded, and then said in an indifferent tone. I just borrowed your stone formation and received some new Druid heritage. He said this as if he was already a Druid before and would do this in the Centaur's tribe just casually. It was obviously the Centaur's stone circle that allowed him to start the Druid profession. Now, in Marjorie's ears, it was just a coincidence, and the usefulness of the stone circle was completely covered up. How did Marjorie know the twists and turns in this? As soon as he heard the word Druid, his eyes lit up. You mean, you are a Druid? Of course, otherwise how could Larry trust me so much? Levin said, patting Larry's head, and the unicorn lowered his head knowingly and leaned on his shoulder, perhaps fearing that Marjorie wouldn't believe it. Levin waved his hand forward. Plants grow. Marjorie immediately saw that the weeds on the grass in front of him were growing crazily. The weeds that originally could only reach his hooves suddenly grew taller than his knees. This is really the power of the legendary Druid. The wizard may be able to use the expansion spell to make a single melon and fruit huge, but he cannot create such a natural growth effect. There is no room for disbelief if there are facts to prove it. So the centaur leader bent his forelimbs towards Levin, lowered his head and put his left hand on his chest to perform a centaur salute, just like Firenze had done to him. Dear Lord Druid, we centaurs follow the ancient contract and would rather gather under your circle to serve the balance of nature. Please have mercy on us and provide natural guidance for our tribe. Levin was shocked when Marjorie saluted him in such a solemn way, but no one among the centaurs behind him was surprised by this. Instead, they imitated Marjorie and saluted Levin one by one. Even Bane, who cared most about the dignity of the centaurs, did not dare to object. Instead, he looked at Levin with a pious look. This scene of all the horses bowing down made Levin's vanity satisfied, but he soon suppressed his complacency, hurriedly stepped forward to help Marjorie, and said humbly. Leader Marjorie, you are serious, you are serious. I am just a half-hearted Druid who has become a monk. I have no ability to guide the Centaur's tribe. Besides, the era of Druids has long passed. Talking about service is too much. I really regard the Centaurs as friends. If you treat me like this, you are not trying to hurt me. Good or bad words persuaded the writers. Does Levin not know the benefits of conquering the Centaurs? No. He knew very well what it meant to conquer the Centaurs. Conquering the Centaurs means that he can control the entire Forbidden Forest, and it also means that he will have a force of his own, but he knows very well that now he has no ability and no need to do so. He is incompetent because he knows very well that any cooperation is essentially a match based on strength. If he wants to truly conquer the Centaur's tribe, he needs to have the power to make the Centaur's tribe fear him, but relying solely on his current LV6 wizard, LV4 Psion, and LV5 Druid power cannot accomplish this. Any attempt to drive the Centaur's tribe by relying on an illusory ancient contract will sooner or later be counterattacked. After all, this ancient contract is not a slave contract. It is better to be a favor here and say a few nice words to improve the relationship with the horse people. when my own hard power increases in the future, this illusory ancient oath will become unbreakable. The reason why I say it's unnecessary is that Levin doesn't need the violent attributes of centaurs yet, and he doesn't need to fight with others. As for controlling the Forbidden Forest, relying on the friendship of unicorns and centaurs, he can definitely do this now, no need to go further. In short, under Levin's persuasion, Marjorie didn't mention what happened just now, but he revealed the so-called ancient contract to him, that it was the heyday of Druidism. The Druids who mastered the power of nature signed an alliance with the vast number of intelligent creatures who possessed the power of nature. Request Flowers 0. The specific content is that Druids have the obligation to help these natural people when necessary and guide them. Of course, without violating the natural balance, and when the balance of nature is destroyed, they also need to follow the oath, obey the Druids' orders, and fight for nature. Since then, Druids have become the recognized leaders of intelligent creatures like them. Things about Druids and oaths are also passed down among them from generation to generation. So there is still such a thing. Levin nodded. He basically believed in this oath, otherwise, how could the Druid religion disappear completely? After all, I am destroying Druids, what does it have to do with your natural balance? 0. So until the Druid religion became extinct, these intelligent creatures did not intervene. Just kidding. The reason why Levin believed it was actually because Larry called him Lord Druid. From this point of view, this legend is not a one-sided statement of the centaurs, at least the unicorn also recognized it, but since this is true, it leads to another troublesome matter. Druids have an obligation to help these people of nature when necessary and to guide them. Levin knows that regardless of the previous so-called child of destiny, it's still the great gift the centaurs gave just now, and the emphasis on this ancient oath, all for this matter, that is, help and guidance from the Druids. Frankly speaking, Levin did awaken the power of the Druid with the help of the Centaur's stone circle. It is only right to help people and horses, but he usually still has a lot of things to do of his own. How can I have the spare time to come to the Centaur's tribe every day and contribute to them? But if he wants to maintain a good relationship between horses and people, he must do this. You can't just go whoring for free. Levin thought about it and noticed. I don't think so, Mr. Marjorie. How about I train a Druid of your own for the Centaur's tribe? Update, May 4th, additional update, 13/201. It's not easy to put a new book on the shelves. Please give me a wave of automatic subscriptions and a wave of monthly flower tickets for reviews and rewards. If you have tickets, please give them to me as the author. This is really important to me.